Welcome everybody to the WellPlayed DLC podcast episode 1. We are rebooting our podcast after having a unorganized shambles of a podcast with our previous name, Do You Even Game Bro, and we're here to kick it off again, and it's going to be awesome, I hope. Joining us today is Kieran.
Hey.
Jordan.
Yo.
And Ash.
Am I allowed to say more than one syllable for my greeting, or is it just hey or yo?
You can have two,
Can I
but
just
you
say
have
sup?
to say nothing next time.
Oh, okay. What's up?
What's up? Oh, wait, are we going? Or did we...
Excellent.
I wasn't sure if Ash stopped and we have to go again.
No,
Okay, cool.
No, that's it's called banter. That's
Right,
how a
sorry.
podcast works.
Okay. You can just wipe that off, John, please.
When you're editing the podcast, please just delete all banter.
Yeah, no banter.
Everyone has to wait their
It's-
turn.
It's just like the Facebook chat, no banter. Yeah, okay, cool. So, now I forgot. Yeah, so we've done that. How are we all today?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Been,
pretty good.
Playing some
To
old
be
games.
completely honest, it's actually very, very cold in Tasmania at the moment.
Yeah, actually,
At
while we're
least you
being
have a
honest,
heater.
I'm really sick, so...
Ah, there we go. It's all coming out of the woodwork
Yeah.
now. Everyone was fine just a second ago, but now we're being honest, we're all actually cold and suffering.
Yeah, the winter sickness is starting to come, unfortunately. So what have we all been playing? Kieran? Jordan, actually.
No, go for it, Jordan.
I've actually been playing an oldie. I've been playing Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for a bit of a piece that I'm writing. Thought I'd do the research on it, and yeah, I actually just finished it last night.
Nice, are you playing that on 3DS?
Of course.
Excellent.
And how is it?
I mean, it is one of my favorite games of all time, so, obviously it sucks.
Is it
Is it really
better
hard?
the more times you play it?
What was that?
Is it better the more times you play it?
Yeah, I'd say so, because I tend to discover or appreciate things I didn't otherwise appreciate the previous times around. It's kind of like I find a new thing to appreciate every time I play it.
Very nice. Kieran?
Sick. I just finished Far Cry New Dawn. Meaning to play it since it came out, and yeah, been smashing it out while I've been sick. It's been good.
And you enjoyed it as much as Dylan?
What did Dylan give it again?
I think he gave it a 9, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's dope. It's way better than 5. It's got some good callbacks to earlier games in some of the mechanics and stuff, so it's really good.
Tasty. Ash, you?
Me? I think I'm pretty much up to at least 100 hours in Mortal Kombat 11, even
Jesus.
though,
Have you
even
unlocked
after
anything
I-
yet?
yeah, I've unlocked 4 different pairs of pants that I can wear on one character that I never play. But yeah, after I trashed it in my review, I actually have come right around on it. Since they improved it, I've been playing the hell out of it, and I think it's starting to annoy every single person that knows me in real life.
I wish I could say the same for Anthem.
Who's
Oh,
your
yes.
Who's your favorite character in Mortal Kombat?
In Mortal Kombat in general or Mortal Kombat 11?
Go both.
Okay, in Mortal Kombat in general, it's Ermac, just because, the dude was an error that became an actual character. But in Mortal Kombat 11, I've actually become that which I hate most. My older brother used to pick on me with Kung Lao, and now I am Kung Lao, so I've become that which I hate.
Poetic.
Nice. I like. Is it Noob? Yeah, Noob. Noob Saibot and Rain. Because
Noob Saibot in Mortal Kombat 11 is fantastic because he's the biggest edgelord in the universe.
is Rain in it?
Rain is not in it.
Cancel the game.
Yeah, the creators keep trolling people about not putting him in games.
No good. Well, I've been playing Days Gone. How exciting. We got our code pretty late, got it on launch, and I've been playing that for review. I was pretty keen for it. I'm mixed at the moment. I'm more on the positive side of mixed, but I'm still mixed. There's a few things it does that frustrate me, and I think, Kieran, you've started playing it, and you noticed one of them last night. That's the save system.
Yeah.
The first night I played it, there's in the opening sort of hour, you have to go and recollect your bike, and the save system works basically by either saving at a bike or at a bed, And so yeah, for the first part of the game, you don't sort of have a bike. So you go to a camp, and I just paused the game and it had save game, like, in the menu, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty rooted, so I might just go to sleep and play some more tomorrow. Click save game, went through all the save game stuff, and it saved and reloaded the next day, and I was back at the beginning of an earlier mission, which was quite frustrating. I mean, it was only like 20 minutes, but it's sort of
So
one of
the save system is effectively checkpoints?
No, you can save whenever, just as long as you're with your bike. So I guess because you're with
More
your bike,
like as carrying your save point with you.
yeah. So because you're with your bike so often, I guess it sort of makes sense that way, and it's not as annoying now because I've got my bike. So
You've got your bike, you've got your save point.
It was just that sort of initial thing, and it was more annoying because there was a save game option in the menu. So
That sounds so frustrating because, like, obviously when you hit that save game button,
yeah,
that's usually the closure that you've saved your game.
yeah. Well, I actually was playing on just a standard PS4 first, because I had some people staying, and then I uploaded it to the cloud to put it onto my Pro, and I actually could see the save that I had where it was at the camp, and I downloaded it to my PS4 Pro, but still, no, it just went
It's
back
like-
to
Oh
the
wait, does
mission.
it do that? Does it do that PlayStation thing where, like, when you save the game, it takes a screenshot of where you are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
So you
Yeah.
can see literally
Yeah.
the point where you saved.
Correct.
But too bad you don't get it.
it's like
That is
rather than save your progress, it's just saving the acknowledgement that you saved.
Yeah. You were up to this point, but you're going to start at the checkpoint when you reload.
So would you say it's a save system that would be better off for like a hardcore mode?
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah. I don't think it's as... I haven't really noticed it too much now, though. Because, like I said, I was... you sort of got your bike, and that's sort of how you move around the world now. But it is a little bit annoying, having that sort of menu save game option that doesn't... It's pointless, basically.
You'd almost prefer it to be grayed out.
Yeah, I don't actually know what it does. I think you can
Because
like...
it doesn't seem to save your
I
game.
think you can hard save at a bike if whatever that means. So you can when you're in the game world, and this is quite neat. There's a little quick save button, so you push triangle and it'll quick save.
yeah, it's this new thing called quick save.
What,
It's
just
really
at any
neat.
time?
Yeah, so I don't actually know what the difference between going into the menu, saving the game is, and quick saving.
Because the other one does
It's obviously
nothing.
for...
Yeah, well,
That's the difference.
Perfect.
One saves
Well, it
and one
sounds
doesn't.
of it. The other one basically just saves your inventory.
maybe you get to unlock it when you finish the game.
So what, New Game Plus now with actual save mode.
Yeah, but yeah, like apart from that, it's I would describe it as a Sony-made Ubisoft game without sort of the quality of life stuff that
That's
Ubisoft
actually
has.
amazingly descriptive.
Yeah.
Put it that way, because it's like...
Because it's it's open world, it's pretty checklisty, but there's little things that Ubisoft has sort of perfected, that you don't quite notice until you go back and play something that's still got those
Not
sort
an
of
Ubisoft.
So things like the animations for if you're looting an animal, every single time you loot an animal, you'll get an animation of him carving the the meat out of the wolf, and it's just like it probably goes for, I don't know, we'll say 3 to 5 seconds, but once you do that 50 times, you're sort of sick of seeing that same animation. Whereas if you're playing like you're in Odyssey or whatever, you just push the button and it collects all the loot that's there.
Yeah.
And that's the same with killing a human or a freaker, as they're called, as well. You get like a little animation instead of just picking up all the loot kind of thing. And it's like little things like that make you, I guess, appreciate those Ubisoft traits a bit more. I'm not sure
Sort
how
of one
far
of those
you've...
things that they've perfected after so many games of doing it. They've realised that, this is
Yeah.
purely aesthetic and no one's going to miss it when it's gone. And it's true.
Pretty much,
People
like
don't.
no one wants to spend 2 hours of gameplay time over like 100 hours looking at at the same animation. I'm not sure if you wouldn't have played that far, Kieran. I don't think.
Probably not far enough to be like looting like animals and stuff, but it's funny you say that because like obviously they put all that work into those animations, but then anytime you go to pick up just a general item from anywhere, Deacon's arm just like flails out of
Yeah.
whatever side of his body that it's in and just like grabs it.
There are some funny funny bugs. There was one where a survivor. So when you're driving throughout the world, you'll come across like survivors. And there was a survivor in a car, right? And he was like trapped in a car, and there were some freakers like outside the car. I killed all those guys, but there was a freaker and an enemy human like glitching out inside the back of the car. So I couldn't actually... So the guy got out of the car, but I couldn't activate the, like the thank you or whatever they do, the little icon when you finish the little survivor thing, because these two guys were like glitching out like inside the back of the car. It was actually quite...
Like clipping into it.
Yeah, they were sort of like... Imagine like a big ball of matter, like, going... Like, it was furious. It was a furious glitch of...
Creation of a
just-
black hole.
Yeah.
My favourite glitches are furious glitches.
I should have recorded it. I'm actually not too sure why I didn't, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the only reason that video captures become big on consoles is just so you can go, wow, that's really messed up what's going on now, and push a button and share it
What
with
you're
your buddies.
saying is we should attribute video capture on consoles to Bethesda.
Yes, pretty much. So I just basically Molotov the car and they so
An appropriate response. I've
Furious
saved you. I'm
response for a
done with you
furious
now.
problem.
and what
Yeah.
happened was they magically like teleported out onto the top of the car, and they didn't get harmed by the fire.
Obviously, that's their fire defense system, is just to teleport, as is the nature of humans in Days Gone, apparently.
And the other guy, so the survivor, just stood there, standing, like it didn't.
Did
didn't-
you
I'd be
still
like
get to
that
do
too
like
if
the
that
thank
just
you for
happened.
rescuing us thing, or were they not too happy after you set them on fire?
Well, the freaker did his usual little, screams and stuff, but I ended up just shooting him with a shotgun. Another thing which
You are kind but fair.
I can see it, but I don't quite like it, is so when you pick up weapons, when you go back to your camp or a camp, you have a locker, so you have you can get weapons and stuff, but you can only get weapons that you buy into your locker. So if you find a weapon out on the road, for example, that you want to put back, that you want to keep, you can't put it into your locker.
Oh, really?
No,
Which-
Deacon's
really
like,
annoying.
this is someone else's. I can't have this.
Yeah, so you can pick
Yeah.
it up and use it, but so there's a sawn-off shotgun that I quite like using, but often I'll run out of bullets and I'll go, oh, I don't want to pick up this other gun because it'll be because I want to keep the shotgun. So there's that. But that's,
I get the purpose behind that kind of functionality in a game, but it's it's similar in like Grand Theft Auto Online, that you can't just keep any car that you steal, even though you are quite literally playing a criminal.
yeah,
In post-apocalyptic Days Gone world, I can't keep this gun I found on the ground.
yeah. The reason why that's a little bit annoying is because it's quite hard to purchase guns. So you have to, when you kill freakers, right, you get their ears. And you can harvest, so you can collect like plants and the meat that you get from when you loot the animals. You go back to one of the camps, and you basically trade them in for camp credits. And each camp has its own sort of perks, I guess. So the first camp, you can upgrade. Its perks are more bike related, so you can upgrade your bike. And the second camp is more guns, so they have more guns available. But you have to have a certain trust level to buy the guns. So basically, it's almost like you have to farm like a shitload of freakers to get enough credits to spend at that camp. So currently, I can't buy any decent gun because I don't have a high enough trust level at one of the camps. Which is then why it's annoying that I can't deposit guns into the locker. And the reason why it's annoying is because the camp credits are separate. So the credits you get at one camp, you can't spend at a different camp. So
What?
which
Each
is
camp has their own economy.
yeah, so which is cool in itself, but the way the game because it's sort of a game, it sort of makes it a bit annoying because you go.
I was just gonna say, so that means like if I harvest like 1,000 freakers and I catch them in at one camp and then I go to the next camp and I've got something I want, I'm stuck. I have to go get like another.
Correct.
Ugh.
Yeah,
See,
yeah. So that's
mechanics like that in games are a little bit too video gamey for me. Like, it just becomes a bit...
Yeah.
Like, I understand that every game is a game. You can't get too invested, or you can't sort of like immerse yourself to the point where everything else isn't real anymore. But there's just some things that sort of smack you in the face and go, yeah, by the way, this is a video game. And you're like, ugh.
Can I buy camp credits on the PlayStation Store?
Actually, no, you can't. That's a good question. I didn't.
Is that what they're called, camp credits?
I did. I think
they
what
are.
they're called. Yeah, no, yeah, because the lady goes, I'll update your credits. But yeah, so it's kind of annoying because you can go out, and every time you deposit bounties, the ears and stuff, or you give them herbs or whatever, your trust level goes up. Like, it's only minimal. I think every year you give them like three trust rating or whatever. So yeah, now I've sort of
Out of like
given
5,000, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 12,000 for the first trust level.
Ugh.
I think I might be that number might be wrong, but I believe it's because I'm up to like 9 something at the moment. Because I gave this guy with the bike like a whole bunch of credits, ears and stuff, because I didn't really realize at the time. And then I went back to the other camp being like, I've got like 10,000 thing, but I can only sort of spend it at like one spot.
And like, does each camp have their own unique inventory to buy from?
Yeah, so like I said, one camp will specialize in a different thing. So yeah, like the first camp that you deal with, they specialize in the bike upgrades, and the second one, so you can put like NOS and stuff, or like nitro and stuff, and get
Like, are you serious? You can drop NOS tanks on your bike?
yeah, and you can get
Amazing.
then you can like get skins and stuff like that for your bike. And the second one, yeah, the second camp that I'm dealing with, you can buy guns. But yeah, anyway, so to sort of wrap it up, it's good. Like, it's not a bad game, but it's not. It didn't really. I thought it would be better than what it is.
I think it's kind of interesting that we're starting to reach a point nowadays where there's so many games of so many different genres, and a lot of things are sort of getting nailed nowadays, that it means that it is very easy to get judged by your peers.
Yeah. And
I mean, just the way that you said that it's an Ubisoft game done by Sony just says so much to me in such a short sentence.
Well, yeah, so it's got all the open world Ubisoft stuff, but it's got the story of a Sony game, kind of. The story's not grabbing me at the moment, with the way it's sort of told. So it's all sort of told a bit through, like a little bit through flashbacks at the start. So I assume you know what the premise for the game is. So you basically start the game and you have to. There's like everything's sort of going down, or it appears to be going down, like the apocalypse or the outbreak, and your wife gets on a helicopter to go to safety, and then you stay with your injured mate Boozer, top bloke, and that's basically. And then the game skips forward I think 2 years, I think, and yeah. So now I guess you're trying to find out what happened to your wife, kind of thing.
Alright.
It's like
Yeah.
It's like if Ubisoft got given Sony money to make a game, but it didn't make them any better at making games. It just made it prettier.
Yeah. Basically, all it is, yeah, it is a very, very pretty game, though.
Well, I mean,
No, it's always impressed me visually when I've seen
The
it.
weather
It's
effects
sort
are
of
dope.
interesting.
well, I mean,
Oh,
that's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen the rain. My God.
that's the nature of Unreal Engine 4, because that engine is so good for making games on.
Oh, it's UE4, is
Yeah.
it? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because I thought I don't know why I thought it was what's the gorilla one?
Oh,
Just look it up. God of War was Unreal 2, wasn't it?
Was it?
No, I don't think so.
It wasn't Unreal 4.
I
Don't
feel like
think
that was
so.
like a proprietary engine.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
what was
God of
the-
War is
Kind of process they
proprietary.
had, maybe.
Decima is Gorilla's engine.
That's one, and I think I was confusing it with Death Stranding because they went with
They've
the gorilla engine,
did
didn't
in
they?
that too,
they
yeah.
did.
Yeah, I think that's where I got confused. Anyway, yeah, so it's okay. I'm not digging it too much, but I'm still interested to see where the story goes. But Ash, you've been playing Mortal Kombat 11, as you said, 150 million hours. How
Too many hours.
Your review wasn't overly glowing of the, I guess, the stuff that comes with the gameplay, like all the.
The baggage.
So
It's the only real way to
tell us
describe it,
about
yeah.
that.
Well, the thing is, it was really... It's one of those things, like, it sucks when you're playing something and you're enjoying it, but you can see all the things that you know are not good. Like,
That's me with Monster
you
Hunter.
can sort of... The best way I described it to a friend of mine, it was like, imagine you sit down to sort of eat your dinner and it's your good old steak and potatoes, but then there's like, you know, just a heaping of like disgusting green beans, and you've got to eat like 500 like green beans before you can get to the steak. It's that kind of stuff where it's like, why would you do this? The chef is a moron. So I mean, the long and short of it is that Mortal Kombat 11, best looking Mortal Kombat in years, sounds incredible, just animates beautifully, but it had a whole bunch of like gameplay prolonging mechanics put in the game, but they weren't the kind of gameplay prolonging mechanic where you want to keep playing. It was the kind where they shackle you to the game and say, yeah, if you want to do this cool thing, it's going to take you literally days, not hours.
It's just padding.
Days. It was just horrible. But the thing is, I've seen how it all played out, and the interesting thing is, right, obviously the game came out, it actually got some pretty middling scores because of this stuff. Everyone's saying it takes too long to unlock things, it takes too long to earn the currencies to do things, and the difficulty for some of the stuff is just ridiculously hard, to the point where it's like there's no point doing it. But the thing is, it took them about 6 days to fix it. Like, that's the absurd thing, is that within 6 days, they had hot-fixed the difficulty of the Towers of Time, which are basically the challenge modes within the game, so they were no longer obscene. They changed the resource generation, so now your currencies get gained a lot quicker. And they also gave everybody a big stimulus of, you know, here, have 500,000 coins, have a bunch of hearts, and then just go unlock the stuff you wish you could have done when the game first came out.
Do you think that maybe they pushed these grindy, heavy mechanics, but they knew that or had a feeling that they would get, I guess, thrashed by everyone, so they were sort of had a hotfix ready to go almost.
Had like a panic button prepared. Just
It does feel a little bit like that, and obviously the big backlash from everyone online is that it feels a little too convenient. That they were so quick to say, "Oh yeah, no, absolutely, it's bad. We'll fix it."
Yeah, because
the thing is, it feels either it's in my mind it's one of two things. Either one, it was a bit of a marketing strategy to immediately try and sort of leverage some user goodwill by just, you know, hey, look how good we are at fixing this, you know, you appreciate us. The problem is they still need to wear the bad scores. On the other hand, just from me sort of poking around in the game before these changes got made, they seem so absurd. It's almost like they didn't really test it well enough to understand exactly what it takes. Like, if every QA tester or developer at NetherRealm Studios is sitting like a massive pile of currency to, like, test unlocking things, did anyone actually sit down and go, if I want this skin from this mode of the game, how long does it take to get? Because the numbers were obscene.
So in the previous one, in X, was it similar, or is it, like, did they have this sort of, were they sort of beginning to build to this, or was it just nothing like this at all and they sort of just dumped it all in here? Because you know how you can sort of, like with Ubisoft, you know, they've slowly implemented these over the games, and now it's kind of all up in your face, and everyone's just, like, you know, a lot of people are just like, oh, you know, that's just how it is.
I suppose the interesting thing is something that I bring up with my friends, and I actually do mention in my review. NetherRealm has a really interesting situation where they've got two franchises. They've got Mortal Kombat and they've got Injustice. And their development cycle is they do a Mortal Kombat game, then they do an Injustice game, then they do a Mortal Kombat game, then they do an Injustice game. And because of this, it means that you see features appear in one game that you know will then appear in the next. So the stuff that takes ages to unlock, so like Mortal Kombat 9 came out and it was a pretty cut and shut fighting game. Sort of every character has 2 skins that you can use immediately, play the game, you might unlock a third one, cool, off you go. As you move towards stuff like Injustice 2, characters actually started to have cosmetic gear, so you can put on your special, you know, Batman helmet and all the rest of it and actually dress your dude up. So everyone knew that it was coming. Mortal Kombat X didn't really have much in the way of cosmetics. You just sort of had a handful of skins for everybody and that was it. But Mortal Kombat 11 is sort of where it's all come to pass. Every character has 3 cosmetic slots. They can also equip a skin. So the best example, just because everybody knows him, you've got Scorpion.
Who?
He's a yellow ninja. If you don't know who he is, you've never seen Mortal Kombat before. That's the only way it could work. His gear slots are his mask, his kunai, so the thing that he throws when he says, "Get over here," and a sword that hangs off his hip. Everything else is dictated by your skin. So, in Mortal Kombat 11's sort of cosmetic unlock economy, if you want to dress up your Scorpion, you may need to have 4 unique items that you need to gain from playing the game. And that means you could be grinding things for currency, you could be opening chests in the crypt that are completely randomized, or you could be waiting for a particular thing to appear in the store. That's where, I guess, it's not so much, it hasn't hit critical mass. I don't feel like a bubble's burst. It's more that people are now acutely aware of this system. And I mean, since they fixed it, it's not so bad, but it was still a case that people had to sort of slog through it in the first place.
Yeah, because we got our code. When did we got our code on launch day, didn't we?
On launch day. Yep.
So, and reviews had hit a day or two before that, I think.
Yeah, sort of in the 48 hours leading up to it, and it was actually quite funny seeing the reviews, because like there was a lot of people sort of going, yes, it's the best Mortal Kombat ever, and then there was a lot of other people saying it's the best Mortal Kombat ever, but it has baggage. And I was like,
How would you rate it in
Interesting
terms
stuff.
of Mortal Kombat? Where for gameplay?
Gameplay?
Yeah.
For a game wherein you beat up an opponent and possibly cut their head off or do something gruesome to their body, it's A+. It's a solid 10. It's like really, really good. And I mean, I don't just mean aesthetically, like it's good to punch the mans and the blood comes out, but from a fighting game perspective, it's simplified down to make it better. So, I mean, read into that as you will, but basically, like, the game is easier to play, but it's harder to master.
Yeah, I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about how some of the combos have been reduced in difficulty or something like that. So there's, there's a, is it like a quick button almost? You know, you push L1 or something and it does...
You got a couple of things like that. I mean, a lot of characters will have really simplistic moves that... Mortal Kombat, like, the big thing that sort of separates Mortal Kombat from Street Fighter is that Street Fighter is the kind of game where you sort of need to memorize 30 button inputs to do sort of your general combo for a character. Whereas Mortal Kombat, at least since Mortal Kombat 9, has been a lot more friendly and sort of going, hey, here's 3 or 4 sort of 4-hit combos, and you can just link them together however you please. And I mean, that works for some people. Some people hate it, but, you know, that's sort of Mortal Kombat in a nutshell. Is it like, you know, I've been playing a bunch of Kung Lao because the dude is a baller with a razor-sharp hat, and, like, I can double-tap circle to do a 3-hit combo. So, a bit like a bad stand-up comedian that sort of reaches into his bag of jokes and just throws a bad knock-knock out. It's like, if I don't know what to do, I just double-tap 0 and hopefully something good happens. Which, for me, works. I mean, for actual fighting game people, they probably do a lot more, but for me, it works.
So you gave it a 6. I think
I gave it a 6.
Yeah. If everything was good at launch, if there was no grindy, what do you reckon it would have been?
I'd probably give it an 8.5 or a 9. I feel like it has to lose a point simply because Ronda Rousey can't voice act. Like, it's just... I'm sorry. Like, don't get me wrong. If she was in the same room as me, I probably wouldn't be saying that stuff, but just... you can't ignore it. You just can't. And the other half a point is probably just from... There's just a couple of game modes that just aren't very user-friendly. It's like, I'm not a hardcore player, and I can't even pretend to get good. Like, I'm good enough, but that stuff is still, like, impossible to beat, even with the balances. But they've got systems around it that just don't work for me.
And the story's pretty good. I heard... was it you that said it was a mix of the movies, or did I might have read that somewhere else?
It's it's what did I say? I said in my review, it's a time travel based pulpy 90s action flick. Like, there's secret robot bases getting exploded, and there's like dark cathedrals of demons getting blown up by, you know, C4 charges and
sounds like Dead or Alive,
time
Zach.
travel shenanigans.
Yeah.
It is
I was just
like
thinking that.
it's actually fantastic. But the thing is, like, I feel like they've jumped the shark. Like, how on earth do you top this?
You make a movie out of it. with
Yeah,
Ronda Rousey.
I actually want a movie of this.
Mortal
made,
Kombat
just,
Endgame.
just because it's stupid.
Yeah.
Well, first we need to set up the Mortal Kombat cinematic universe, guys. That's where we start.
The
That's where we go
the
from there.
MKCU.
Well, you think about the DC universe. You know, they're doing the Injustice games. Why don't we just make the next film, instead of Batman versus Superman, you can have like DC versus Mortal Kombat. Not the game, the movie.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I'd watch
Yeah,
that.
I'd be okay with it.
I
But,
actually
yeah.
don't mind the first. Well, the second movie is a bit average, but the first one's pretty good.
What, for Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
Do you watch it on VHS
Yeah, I was actually
or
looking it up
Laserdisc?
the other day. Yeah, it's actually quite... I rewatched the second one just this weekend gone, mostly because I'd forgotten how bad it was.
Mate, that opening scene with Johnny Cage is Shite. That is one of
just
the
thought it was
worst things.
Do you remember this guy that you liked from the last film? Well, he's dead now, so moving on.
Pretty much. But while we're talking about Mortal Kombat, NetherRealm have been in a bit of trouble in the Twitterverse and in the media of late. It's come out that their work standards or practices are quite crunchy and not good, and there's sort of a bad culture at the top of the chain.
Yeah, there's been accusations made by their contract workers that they were put in tiny windowless rooms and worked to the bone. B, they were taken
WellPlayed.
advantage of. Yeah, I know, that's pretty much that's how this podcast is being done. It's from a windowless room in Zach's basement. But apparently there was disparaging remarks from everybody. Apparently being a contractor in NetherRealm Studios is being the most bottom that you can possibly be.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even just NetherRealms. There's been a whole slew of all these unfair work conditions coming out. Especially you have BioWare recently with that expose about Anthem's development, which pretty much perfectly.
Are you talking about that massive novel someone wrote about the Anthem development?
Yeah,
11,
Jason
11,000
Schreier.
words. Yeah.
That was riveting. I actually took that to the toilet at work to read it, and I'm pretty sure I was gone for like 35 minutes.
It's so
People might have
interesting.
assumed I was dead, but it was that riveting.
It's so interesting how such incompetence can be the head of a developer.
Yeah, and I think because do you listen to the Kotaku podcast?
No.
Split Screen. So on that, when that came out, they did they had a bit of a chat about it, and he may have even put this on Twitter, but he said that a bunch of different developers basically messaged him and said, basically insert my studio's name with, instead of BioWare, and that's how it's run.
Yeah.
Apparently, people from Naughty Dog did it. I can't remember who else he said now, but yeah, actually he might not have said anybody else, but yeah, I believe Naughty Dog were mentioned. So it's quite. So it's.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's a lot of the AAA studios. You even have just today, Riot Games, the developers for I think it's League of Legends. They had a massive walkout because they've been in a lot of turmoil about their work conditions regarding sexism towards their female workers, and they've been pushing towards
that's
a whole
been going
change
for such a long time.
Yeah,
That's in the
has.
community as well as a developer. Like that's
Yeah.
a whole thing. with League.
It's this whole thing, and they've been pushing for a change in the culture for so long. And basically, what I can garner is management was basically just like, get over it. And so pretty much all of the studio just did a walkout and protested outside the building today.
Well, did you hear about their proposed idea of the arbitration for new employees?
I
If you have a problem,
read
it has to be
very
solved
briefly.
internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was like who was the person that came out? Something happened sort of last year, and that happened. Actually, no, that's actually something completely different. That's to do with the AFL. Cancel that.
Okay.
But speaking of AFL Live, no.
Going back to NetherRealm though.
Yeah.
Do you think the whole, or like them kind of being shocked that people weren't into the grinding economy of the game? Do you think that was just them being like, well, we like doing it?
Yeah. If it's okay for us, surely it's okay for our players. We just kind of call it Mortal Kombat Crunch. That's the game mode.
I think.
See, the interesting thing is, I tracked a little bit of the Mortal Kombat stuff, if only just because I was immersed in that sort of realm of the news sphere. And the interesting thing about the NetherRealm stuff is that obviously a handful of contractors came out and said that, but then there also was a handful of contractors that came out and said that's not the case at all. So that's.
I mean, that could be on a contract by contract basis if they're not like.
Oh, absolutely.
Not
And I
permanent
feel that that's the
employees.
case. Like, for me, the biggest thing that got me about it wasn't my reaction of, oh no, that's terrible, because it is terrible. But it was my reaction of, oh look, another one.
Yeah.
And
That's the horrible thing about the gaming industry, is that you're starting to reach this point where it's a little bit how, like, a couple of years ago it started to come out that most of the people in Hollywood are horrible people.
Yeah.
It's like that, but for video games now, where you just hear like, oh yeah, of course, they're scumbags. I mean, I was waiting for it to come out. Now I know. So at least it's good that I know
it's
now.
always happening. I can even date as far back to as like the first Red Dead Redemption, where the wives of the Red Dead developers were just like basically having a go at Rockstar for overworking their husbands. And just
We're never going to see our
It's
husbands.
weird because it's back then as well. Like back then, you heard stuff like that. I don't know if everyone else did, but you heard stuff like that in like read stuff about it in like Hyper magazine and stuff. You're like, damn, those guys are like,
Yep.
those guys are legends. They like put in so much
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
to make this game, and
Like,
then you grow up and you're like, oh
from
no,
that
that's actually
base-
not good.
Yeah, from that base point of view, you think, man, what a dedicated group of awesome people to get it done. But now you're realizing just when you get down to it, it's abuse.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the best example, and this is what sort of what Kieran was saying, how you like, they're superheroes for doing it, is the Metro guys, 4A, when they were doing Last Light, and you heard about how they had like no heaters, they were sitting on like folding
School
chairs.
desks and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the
Wow.
best example is the director for Super Smash Bros, where he went on an IV drip for a while just to continue working on his game. Like,
What?
that's not good. You should not be doing that.
But at least
Stop making games like that.
I mean, not as an excuse, but at least he's the sort of the director, and not like
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
he's
true.
not an underling being
yeah,
abused.
the director's not going home and enforcing one of the grunts to, shoulder all the burden. But that what we were saying just before sort of reminded me of when Red Dead 2, when they were when that whole thing came out about Rockstar and
Yep.
and Red Dead 2.
Yeah, the 100-hour work weeks.
Yeah, but then they were allowed to talk about it. But then after that, sort of most things that come out were sort of all positive. It was like, oh, nah, it's all pretty good here. It's not too bad. Or it was only the writers or whatever else. Yeah, they
Well,
said.
that sounds a lot like what was the issue with CD Projekt Red, because all that news about how pretty much the entire development for The Witcher 3 was basically all crunch. And, you had these developers that were speaking out against this through, I think it was like Glassdoor reviews or something. And then you had other
yeah.
people
They're
going, oh,
interesting
no.
to read.
And you have other people
Glassdoor
going,
is
oh,
great.
no, it's not like that at all. And then the thing that really kind of cemented the idea that that's what they were doing was the fact that CD Projekt Red came out and responded, basically saying, this is the way the industry works. If you can't get with it, get out. Instead of going,
Wow.
we take full
Yeah.
responsibility for this, we're going to fix this. Or, these allegations are just that. Allegations, they're not true. Then you could have gone, okay, maybe. But the fact that they had such a bizarre and stupid response to these allegations are kind of what cement the idea that this isn't just a CD Projekt Red thing, even though at the time it was focusing on them. But, they kind of just highlighted that the whole industry does it, which isn't a thing that should be normalized.
Yeah.
CD Projekt Red, though, are sort of prone to social blunders.
Oh, yeah.
It seems.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yikes.
sure, their one game that I've sort of played. Well, I've played The Witcher 2, and I thought that was a bit avo, but Witcher 3 was pretty good, and Witcher 2
by
just
avo, you
didn't
mean
sort
it's
of-
no trolling.
Be
I
glad you
just-
didn't play The Witcher 1.
It just
Yeah,
didn't
that sure was a game.
just didn't do it for me.
So, lads, tell me this. Obviously, by today's standard, the video games industry is more lucrative than the entire film industry. It's absolutely absurd. Do you think that, obviously looking back to older times of people putting in some extra hours to getting the product out was fine. Do you feel that the explosive growth of the game industry based off the money-making potential is what's basically amplified what once upon a time might have been a little bit of extra overtime into this horrible atmosphere
Yeah.
for people working in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that not just in terms of employee conditions, but in every aspect, the exploitative loot box systems and stuff. It's all just because of that bubble, and
Absolutely.
especially a lot of companies. Activision is a good example. Are hiring these shotgun CEOs that come in and just make as much money in as short time as possible, and then leave it to burn.
Yeah, that's the absurd thing. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and the thing that gets me is that once upon a time, people in the game industry, these big companies, these big developers, these big publishers, the kind of people they'd be hiring is talented people with vision, that have artistic skills, that have modeling skills, that have programming skills.
They like games.
But
as
nowadays, there's people that are hired. Literally, they're hiring economists
Yeah.
Yep.
for their game, and I'm like, wow, that's a big long way from the 90s.
Yeah,
The
but
other annoying thing with that, this is only a quick point, Jordan, but is that even though we all you hear everybody sort of complain about it, but they're still making record profits all the time. So people are still buying the microtransactions. So as much as people go, oh, this is shit, don't support this, it's still getting bigger and bigger. So guys like, is it Bobby Kotick.
Bobby
the guy
Kotick,
who's
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, as bad as their practices are, you know, he's doing a great job in terms of what Activision would think, because their profits are, I mean, I think their profits are
Numbers,
going down, actually,
numbers on
but-
a page is all he needs to see, and it's good. There's a red line trailing up on his end. That's all he
Yeah.
needs.
Well,
But yeah.
it's kind of a double-edged sword, because in one way he's doing a great job for the shareholders, but in another sense he's doing a terrible job at Activision, because he's pocketing so much that earlier this year they had to fire 800 people. And
Yeah, that's-
while
That's
they
his-
weren't key development staffs themselves, they were very much a vital part of the whole gaming experience, because a lot of them had to do with like customer and tech support. And when you have games that you manage, because Activision emerged with Blizzard, and it's been that way for a while, when you have games to manage like Destiny and WoW and all those online service games, you're gonna need a competent tech support, a customer support team to make the experience one worth coming back to. And the fact that they kind of just throw that away shows that their vision as CEOs is very short-sighted.
That's like the thing with Bobby Kotick is he's not permanent. He'll be there for as long as he's like trending up, and then as soon as it crashes, he's gone. He's got his bonuses. He's out of there. Like, to him, it doesn't matter.
I think he was part of the people who bought or took over Activision initially, I think. Because I was surprised at this. 'cause
Pretty
I
sure
thought he
I've read
was
that
someone,
as well. I'm
yeah, I
pretty sure
thought
he's the guy that pretty much started burning it down from the inside.
Yeah, so I think he is, like he's the main guy. So I don't know who's going to fire him, really. I mean,
He's
apart
one of
from
the
obviously-
dark-robed
yeah.
figures that sits in a shadowy room making these terrible decisions.
Probably
Yeah,
not.
so
So-
what's the
So, I mean-
solution?
Yeah, if the gaming industry is this bad for players and for people working for the companies, how do you change it? I mean, at least for employees, there's the idea of unions.
Yeah, and it seems like unions are starting to come around now, especially after the whole Red Dead Redemption 2 thing. Then actual organizations started sprouting, and a lot of developers within the industry have been, backing it. So it really is. It comes down to the idea that, especially in the gaming industry, where the AAA publishers have reinforced this idea that these people working in these development studios are so privileged and so lucky to be a part of these projects and these teams that they don't really need a union, because they should just count themselves as lucky. When in reality,
Like those companies that don't have HR because everyone's happy.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like they reinforced that mindset, which is why unions in the industry are so hard to establish, because the rest of the industry, they look at it and go, no, we don't need that. We're lucky to be here. Why would we need that? When it's kind of just turning a blind eye to the real issue.
Just a question, and I actually have no idea what the answer is. Is the games industry harder to unionize because there's so many contractors?
It's definitely a factor of it. The biggest issue as well is that the games industry, I mean, this is going to sound weird because obviously it's 2019 and we're dealing with the biggest amount of money you've ever seen, but the games industry is still very wild, wild west. I worked in the finance sector within Australia, and that was so regulated because it had been around for so long. Everybody who had something to say about it had put their 2 cents in. People had come down on it, and even now in Australia, just in the last couple of years, obviously we saw a Royal Commission go into it. But the problem is, if you imagine from that same perspective, if somebody was going to go into like a Royal Commission on the games industry, who are the people that are investigating it? Who are these people that could be considered the superiors to actually look into it and say that's wrong? The problem is that a lot of people who should be making these decisions, like what is considered like good working hours for a person, in a contractor sense, what is a QA tester's real job besides being driven slowly insane? We don't really have that senior group of people to do it.
There are so many
We
variables.
sort of have
and
these rock stars that have, sort of come into the industry, done their thing, and then left again. But nobody's really said, hey, when I start making games, I'm just going to start looking over the other people making games and making sure they're okay.
Well, and that's kind of why I appreciate Respawn so much.
Yes.
They've reinforced this positive working environment so well that, just last week or something, there was reports about how Respawn have some of the best working conditions around, which is awesome to see amidst, an environment where it's all just talking about how the industry is full of shitty working
This
conditions.
actually leads into my next point, which is I think based off the kind of feedback that we're getting now about these terrible working conditions, we are going to see more cases of goodwill companies. Companies that they're going to lead with, hey, we're not going to crunch you to death. And, you know, hey, we're going to allow you to set up a union, things like that. It's obviously when there's push in one direction, there'll be push back, and Respawn acknowledging it is such a huge step.
Oh, for sure. And Respawn are a very special case because they're under probably what is one of the most hated publishers in the world, EA. And, you know, because of EA's blunder with Titanfall 2, Respawn have basically just told EA and Andrew Wilson to fuck off and let them do their thing.
Well, actually,
Exact quote.
it's funny that you mentioned that because a few things I've heard is it was actually Respawn's call to release Titanfall 2 when they did. In the same way it was Respawn's call to release Apex when they were about to do... What was the other game EA were doing? Oh,
Jedi.
what's the one that just came out?
Jedi Fallen Order.
No, the one they...
Anthem.
Apex Legends.
Anthem. So Anthem was coming out... what's it, March 22nd, I think? Or
Right.
February 22nd, or whenever
February
it was.
22nd,
And Apex
yeah.
came out like 2 weeks before or something. Yeah, like I was chatting to, I don't know, I can't remember, somebody, and we were confused at why EA would launch, this free battle royale game that obviously was going to, get a bit of hype, and then release Anthem like it's probably its biggest game of the year, within a 2-week period. But yeah, apparently it was Respawn's call to do that.
I would say it might have been Respawn's call in the sense that they were given dates to choose from and they chose that one. Like they were given like, oh, you release it at this time or this time or this time. These are the choices that you have, and they go, okay, we'll choose this time because that's the only time that may feel appropriate for our game. Whereas instead of letting them go, oh, we'll wait for the whole FPS market to kind of be to die down a little bit after the Battlefield and COD installment for that year. You want to do it around the end of November. That would have been a smarter choice. But yeah, given the way that a lot of publishers work, it wouldn't surprise me if they had targets to meet, and so Respawn's release schedule and timing for Titanfall 2 had to work around that.
Yeah, well, that's what they said about the in the Anthem, in that big long Anthem novel, was that they basically, EA were like, okay, well, you have to have it released by here. No more delays, no more wasting money. It's got to come out. We might just move on, but same sort of, I guess, topic, but another big company, more probably a name in itself, has been under a bit of heat this week with Randy Pitchford.
Old mate Randy.
Someone needs to take the internet away from him.
Do you know?
He's like the Trump of the gaming world, just like tweeting out just bullshit.
Oh my
I
goodness.
literally said to somebody the other day, you know how Facebook has introduced that option now that if you send a message to the chat, you have like 30 seconds where you can remove it? They need that for Twitter, but the way that it works is that you write your tweet, you hit send, and then it just stays on the screen for like 30 seconds saying, are you sure you want to say this? Are you sure? And then they need to enforce it on Donald Trump. Ha! Politics. Anyway, Randy Pitchford has said some ridiculous things recently.
It's not even recently though. If you look at Randy Pitchford's behavior,
Oh yeah,
it's a consistent
Sorry, when I say
thing.
Randy Pitchford said some ridiculous things recently, I
some
don't
new
mean that
ones.
that's it's a new. Yeah, he said new stuff compared to what he said in the past.
I
But
liked
like,
his old stuff, but his new stuff's pretty good.
I mean,
but yeah,
have you ever read his whole Battleborn marketing tweet?
Yeah.
It's the most confusing thing in the world.
Do you remember when, actually, I think it was old mate Jason Schreier again, he wrote about, or he broke or whatever, that Battleborn would be going free, free to play, sorry. And
yes.
Randy Pitchford's like, Battleborn, I'm not sure if you've seen those rubbish articles, whatever, but Battleborn is not going free to play.
Yeah, will never ever be
Well,
free.
I mean, he does it all the time as well. I think it was Kotaku again that reported on Borderlands 2 being announced, because that was originally going to be announced via the Game Informer magazine.
Yeah.
And Kotaku or Polygon or something got word of it, and as any good journalist does, you report on it. He called them shoddy journalism, going, oh, these rumors are absolutely not true. And then the week after, it gets announced.
Like, it's one thing to say it's not true. It's another thing to try and deflect. But I mean, for the people listening at home, what we're talking about is obviously there's been a bit of hot water on Gearbox's part regarding the Borderlands 3 voice actors in the game. Most notably, this is the funny thing, is that it's not one person, it's two people. Troy Baker obviously came forward to mention how the character Reese, who was beloved in the Telltale Borderlands games, appears in Borderlands 3. However, it's revealed that Troy Baker, very talented voice actor, doesn't voice Reese in the game. So obviously tweets went out and people said, "Hey Troy, why didn't you voice Reese? You know, you did such a great job." To which he replied with, "I would have loved to do it, but I was never invited by Gearbox." To which what Randy tweeted said, "Yeah, you were."
Well, it's not even the whole voice acting thing. Did you read up on how he had a go at Game Informer for their report on the microtransactions?
All right,
Borderlands 3?
so I'll
yes.
take point on this because I was there at the event.
Excellent.
I was there
Courtesy of Press
Press
Start.
Start.
And the sexy boy, the now married Shannon Grixty.
Congratulations.
Shannon Grixie, ladies and gentlemen. There we go.
But yeah, so I think they actually recorded the live stream twice because there was a second day to it with a bunch of other streamers and stuff. But the first, like, we were there the first day, and like Randy literally on stage obviously said the words like, "There's not going to be any microtransactions or like free to play junk."
I'm pretty sure it was verbatim. There are no microtransactions.
Literally,
in
there are no
Borderlands 3.
microtransactions or free to play junk in Borderlands 3. And
Yeah, that's
everyone
free
was
play
like,
junk. He listed it like a feature.
Yeah.
everyone was like ecstatic in the crowd, and like, you know, journalists, myself included, were like firing off like stories ready for embargo to be like, "Hey, there's no microtransactions. This is awesome." And then like before the news could even come out, you know, Gearbox reps went back on that and were like, "Oh, no, actually there is. Like, there's cosmetic microtransactions."
Yeah.
And then so Game Informer runs their, like, obviously would have gonna run the original story and then like ran the story saying like Randy lied, like in a lot more words than that, obviously a lot more subtly than that, but they were like, you know,
Well, no,
he said
it
one
wasn't-
thing, but it's not the
wasn't
case.
necessarily that Randy lied. It was
He
they were
just-
saying his wording was a bit confusing. We're going to
Yeah,
clarify for it, and this is what he.
The
Yeah,
way
yeah.
that he phrased it was so ambiguous. If he was on stage and he said, "There's no microtransactions," and like finger quoted, people would probably get what he was. People would pick up what he was
We
laying
like to
down.
call them small transactions.
There's no mini buys in the game.
Well, I like that actually.
But yeah, so like Game Informer rightfully were like, "Hey, like, you know, this is a thing. He kind of said this, but it's not quite what he meant." And then he just like blew up about it, like on like an 18 tweet rant.
Oh, it
Not
was
even
far
not even
more than
addressing
that.
not even addressing that one thing, but trying to like sell his game to them again in this like Twitter rant.
It
Like,
was so amazing. So yeah, he spent, I think it was like 10 tweets or something attacking Game Informer, and then he verged off onto the actual editor of Game Informer himself. And the editor was like, you know, he was being professional. He goes, "I understand where you're coming from, but you know, this is the way we wrote it. We did not write it with the intention of calling you a liar, but you understand how internet trolls can be. I can give them a flower and they'll say it's a dragon or something like that." That was like their analogy. and then Randy
sounds like
comes
sounds
back
like a
with
Zach
like
Jackson analogy.
he comes back with like this 22 tweets of just
many
an
tweets?
apology. He's got 20. It's so long, and he just does this massive apology to try and seem like he's the good guy in this situation.
Oh my god!
So the other
You
guy,
see what I mean? Like,
the other
thing-
guy that hasn't been. Oh no, you go. If you got.
I was just gonna
to
say the thing that gets me about Randy Pitchford. It's kind of nothing to do with this, but the thing that gets me with him is he gets so like deeply offended by these things, and he goes on these big rants, and I just feel like he doesn't know that he runs the company that made Duke Nukem Forever.
Or
I
he
feel
runs
Aliens, Colonial
or
Marines.
he
Aliens,
runs
Colonial Marines, like,
yeah, no.
I think
no. They didn't
Borderlands
make
is their only good game.
they
be
didn't make
fair.
Aliens Colonial Marines. They outsourced it.
To about
Yeah.
4 different companies. Yeah, but that's enough for. Let's talk about video game disasters another day. But yeah, Randy Pitchford is a very, very unique individual in the gaming industry, and I think the Twitter throttling technology should be applied to him first.
Him,
The other guy the other character, sorry, who's not come back, or sorry, the original voice
Claptrap,
actor.
wasn't it?
Claptrap.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've not ever played more than half an hour of Borderlands, so I can't say I have any sort of affinity
So
for.
you're the leading authority here for us.
But
You should know
Yeah,
that his
this-
voice is very annoying, and we're all glad he's gone.
yeah, oh really? So
Nah.
I might.
the
Kind
guy
of.
David Eddings has gone on a big long Twitter, not a rant. I wouldn't say it's a rant, but he's obviously responding to Randy or Gearbox's whatever, saying that the reasons, basically going into reasons why he didn't come back and reprise his role. It's actually quite interesting, and there's an interesting tweet here where I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, and it goes, personally, I think Randy's been on tilt for the last few years. He's not the victim. He's not the victim he betrays himself to be. I even blocked him a couple of years ago for stalking me on social media. So, mate,
Yeah.
If Randy follows you on Twitter, anyone, watch out.
Crap, let me go to my follow list. Or 14
Funnily
people.
enough, I don't actually have Twitter because I'm afraid I'll turn into Randy Pitch.
It
So
does
yeah,
have,
like, but like, so the thing with this guy, if anyone doesn't know, is basically like he used to work for Gearbox. He was quite high level at Gearbox, and he was doing the Claptrap voice for free because he worked there, obviously.
Oh, is this the guy, the lawsuit? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So like he left on terrible terms.
Yes.
But it was like he was saying it, like Randy was saying, it was common practice for people at Gearbox to do voices, and they didn't have to if they didn't want to, but basically they could just do it for fun and not get paid for it. And that's what he did for like 2 or 3 games.
I actually didn't know he was the lawsuit guy, because I know that Randy was
Probably one of them.
The USB, you know, the whole
I
the
think
magic
I think
USB?
the lawsuit guy
I think
was a
that was-
former lawyer.
Yeah, I think
okay, I thought it
that
was
guy
him,
was
yeah,
different, but he this
Alright.
guy, he's still left on bad terms from what I've heard.
It was awful terms. I actually met David a couple of years ago at Comic Con in San Diego because he's a fantastic guy. He's done a lot of really great roles. He was the robot from Invader Zim who had exactly the same voice as Claptrap, but I'm not going to say his derivative. But he actually left Gearbox in 2017 on the worst of terms. In fact, he actually said that Randy Pitchford physically assaulted him at a hotel lobby at GDC 2017. So,
Yeah.
just to put in perspective, that's horrible terms.
Yeah.
But yeah. So a lot of people ask, like, so what's the deal? Why aren't you doing Claptrap? And apparently, he said, and this is the exact tweet when people are asking. He says, "No, for the first time, I insisted on getting paid for my performance, and all of a sudden, they couldn't afford me."
And
Which tells you that either they weren't going to pay him or they weren't going to pay him enough.
well,
Yeah.
and the thing is, those older Borderlands games, they were made in a time when the industry did not give a shit about taking care of the voice actors, because it wasn't until
God,
like
no.
4 or 5 years ago that there was the whole voice actor strike.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and like, all these Borderlands games were made before then, so even doing voice acting without being paid was quite normal in the industry. Thank God that changed. But yeah, and so it really does not surprise me that they don't want to pay him for his services, not even because he left on bad terms, but because there might be that whole environment or that whole mindset still baked within Gearbox, and not even within the developers themselves, because a lot of the bad management issues never fall on the actual people that make the game. It falls on the
No,
people that speak for
exactly.
the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of talented people working at Gearbox who sort of get painted with the same brush as Randy Pitchford just because he's the guy with the face. But the interesting thing is that obviously, because Randy Pitchford loves a good game, if he said, then I said, and then he said, Pitchford actually mentioned that he offered Eddings twice the standard union voice actor rate to return for Borderlands 3, but claims that David refused.
Is this coming from the same person that said he was the biggest Aliens fan?
Yeah, it's hard to quote Randy Pitchford because somebody can say something like that immediately afterwards and just crack up.
There's a very good quote right in front of me. This is the one that he responded to Game Informer, and I actually forgot that this was his response, and it just made me I nearly laughed. Thank God I didn't. But his response to Game Informer was, "Why you guys would fuck me on this is beyond me. Thanks a lot."
Yes. Oh my goodness. He loves playing the victim so hard, and he paints this image in that whole Twitter debate that the entire, like, all the gaming journalists in the world are just out there to attack him.
He reminds me of like a sort of like a better studio owner than the guy that made Lawbreakers. Who's
Cliff
that main
Bleszinski.
guy?
Oh, Cliffy B.
Yeah, him. Yeah.
Cliffy B. See, Cliffy B doesn't play the victim though.
No,
At least
no.
he'll say,
But
"Yeah,
just
it
the
was
way
crap,
that he,
sorry."
just the way
Yeah.
that he sort of.
They both fit that archetype of rockstar developers. The problem is Cliffy B is a bit of a rockstar, if only because he, did what he wanted to do and then got out of the industry. Randy Pitchford is a magician. He's legit a magician. He does tricks. he's a magician. The problem is he takes that same sort of motivation and headspace into being this gaming executive. Whereas, like, it's all about the pizzazz, and if I can't get it, I get angry with the people for not getting it.
Yeah,
Do you know who he reminds me of? If you've seen Arrested Development, I always think of Randy Pitchford as Joe.
Yes.
They're illusions, Michael.
That is perfect.
But
It's
Kieran,
twice the voice actor rate, Michael.
You've played Borderlands 3. What did you think? Give us a quick wrap of what
Give
you
us a
thought.
taste.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. It was Borderlands, which is like,
I think the most robust feedback I've heard is it's Borderlands 2, but just a bit better.
yeah, pretty much. Like, I mean, they were upfront about it. Like, they were like, you know, we didn't want to, I guess, stir the pot or, like, you know, go too far. They were just, we just did the same thing.
It's very
People will
dangerous
like it.
saying things like that because it almost sounded like we didn't want to innovate.
Well, it's kind of like in fewer words. Like, it feels a little bit like that. Like, they're playing it very, very, very safe.
See,
But,
I'd be
like, it's not-
interested to see all the changes they might make because, you know, like Days Gone, Borderlands 3 is using Unreal Engine 4, but for the
Yeah.
PC version, it's being hosted on the Epic Game Store for, is it like 9 months or something? Something like that. But the thing that comes with being both an Unreal, a UE4 game and an Epic Game Store exclusive is it opens up the doors for crossplay. Because UE4 actually has the backend to support crossplay across all the consoles, as you've seen with Fortnite. But
yeah,
Epic,
it would be very, very
Rocket
cool.
League.
Epic only currently
League 2.
support it for their platform, which makes sense because they've still got to refine it a bit more. They have stated that they will eventually bring it out to games that go on Steam and all that, but for now it's just, you know, it's exclusive to their platform. So I'd be really curious to see if Borderlands try to bring crossplay into it, if not just as an exclusive feature for Epic. Because even if you look at that Monster Hunter clone game, Dauntless, it was supposed to come out last month, but I don't know what's happening with that. That's going to be entirely crossplay when it comes out. So
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like, I mean, it's already got split screen as well, so like having crossplay would just make it just like, you know, that like infinitely playable, just like whoever you are,
Yeah.
like on the couch, on a PS4, on a PC, like jump in and play. But like that's like one of the things before they'd revealed any of the gameplay. Like, there's any number of ways that I was kind of like wondering how it would pan out. Like, obviously, it's one of like the earlier looter shooter kind of, you know, role playing FPS kind of games, and now you've got Destiny, you've got The Division, you've got Anthem and stuff. And like, obviously, before playing it, I was like, you know, what is it borrowing anything from those games? Is it like,
look, you don't want to borrow anything from
Have you
Anthem.
got Anthem though?
but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it could have gone any number of ways, but it was kind of relieving to be there. And then they're just like, yeah, it's Borderlands. So like, if you like Borderlands, you'll love it. If you haven't played Borderlands, you'll love it. If you got tired of Borderlands, that's, you know, whatever. Try it anyway. But
sometimes you're happy with just an iterative sequel. It's
Yeah.
just, it's the same but slightly better.
Yeah,
and
and
you're like, yeah, I'm okay.
and it's like hands down the best version of Borderlands. Like, the new stuff, the new additions to like the shooting mechanics and like the character builds and abilities and guns and stuff are all really, really like meaningful additions that actually like make the gameplay like a lot better than it was before. And it's
I
a
have
beautiful
managed
game
to
as
pick
well.
up some. I've managed to pick up some very small tidbits of information about the game as I waded through Randy Pitchford drama. So what I've heard does sound very good, and I mean, the Borderlands series is one of those games. The Borderlands 1 was a solid okay.
Yeah.
It was definitely an okay game. Borderlands 2 just drastically improved it and pushed things in all the right directions. So if Borderlands 3 can just take Borderlands 2 and just... It doesn't have to have as big a jump as it did from 1 to 2. Just a bit better, a bit bigger, a bit nicer, a bit
The
simpler.
question
Yeah.
is,
Cool.
how long do
Done.
you reckon it'll be until the players of Borderlands 3 replace everything with...
I think
The
that's
most
like,
important
That
thing.
makes me laugh. That's good.
I think that they've just patched in support for that from day one. So as long as you
Good.
have like a Thomas the Tank Engine VHS lying around somewhere,
Hell yeah.
you can just like scan that bad boy in. You're all good.
Dude, completely going like off topic here, but for a while I've been playing Monster Hunter World on my PC. I've modded the shit out of that, so like all my monsters are now Thomas the Tank Engine. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world.
I've seen your PC, Jordan. You've put it inside like a Thomas the Tank Engine model set now, haven't you?
Ah, man, don't reveal my secrets.
I think Jordan needs to write a top 5 games that need a Thomas the Tank Engine mod.
Yeah, top 5 games improved by Thomas the Tank.
Yeah, I'll put Resident
Make sure
Evil
one
2
of
at the
them's
top.
putt.
Yes.
You
Can you actually like what if you get
Troll and
like
I?
Euro Train Simulator?
Thomas and I?
No. Tom. No, Troll and Thomas, obviously. Get rid of I.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
true.
would love to see the troll with just Thomas the Tank Engine as a parrot.
Oh, I love that game. Love it. Kieran, you've also been playing Aussie-made game that came out today, Brief Battles.
Brief
We covered
Battles.
it for Made in Australia. In fact, it was our very first one. It was our
Yeah.
first. Yeah, and I mean, you and I have played it a couple times at PAX, but now it's
Kicked your
fully
ass.
out, and you did actually. I was pantsed. I was real bad.
I get it.
Uh,
I see what you did there.
So yeah, your review went live today. But what did you just give us a brief rundown for Ash and Jordan,
Oh,
who probably didn't read
He
it?
did it again. He used the word brief.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
game about underwear, people.
That was actually unintentional. Yeah. So just give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, so it's your prototypical kind of like party brawler. So, single screen, up to 4 people, just like bashing the shit out of each other, basically, with either power-ups or the almighty butt stomp, which is apparently much more effective when you're not wearing pants. It's just all butt. But I mean,
Been there.
it's pretty simple, but it's developed by 2 guys, and for 2 guys, like they've managed to include like a shitload of content. There's
Really?
like,
It's only 2 people on the team.
well, I think like
Yeah.
the core team is just the 2 guys, like the core designers, and I think
Yeah,
if
no.
you go back and read the MIA, like
I think it is just 2
working
guys.
out of a garage, like with their
Yeah.
family supporting them and stuff. It's pretty cool. But like most of those games, they hand you the multiplayer modes, and a few variations of, and they're like, cool, here you go, it's a multiplayer game. This is what you want. But these guys went as far as including like single player content and co-op content and unlockable costumes from like other indie games and stuff, which is really cool. So yeah, it's like for what it is, like for where it's come from, it's like a super super robust party game. The only thing it doesn't have is online play, which is not a big deal because it's a couch game.
Yep.
But yeah, like it's super fun. I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. I think I gave it an 8. I didn't realize until earlier today, even though Zach had probably already told me many times, but it's only $20 as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
So the cool thing about this game, I'll do a couple of things, but it was at PAX in 2019, I think 2017. We first saw it. It might have been at PAX before that. I can't quite remember. But they were running. They actually launched, and this is all in the article. But they were running their Kickstarter at the same time. So it was kickstarted. It only just made it. Like I think in the last hour or last day. Sorry. I actually ended up backing it. And the cool thing that they've done is they had an issue with so when it was first announced for the Kickstarter, it was only PC and Xbox. And then way down the track, late last year or early this year, I think it was late last year, they revealed it was coming to PS4 on day one, and then switched a bit later on in 2019. So I actually changed because I got it for Xbox initially, but then when the option came to change to PS4, I changed to PS4. So when they actually sent me through the code the other day on Saturday, but they had trouble getting keys for Kickstarter, and what they've done, so I think my pledge was, I don't know, $25 or whatever it was. What they've done is they've actually bought a $30 PS4 gift voucher and given it to the PS4 backers to buy the game with. So the game's $21.50 or whatever it was, and then you have that, and then you get to keep the additional $8 and save it or spend it on something else. I was chatting to one of the guys, Andrew, and he said it didn't cost him too much more. But yeah, apparently there was a bit of red tape or something that they couldn't. I'm not too sure. He didn't say. That basically stopped it from getting keys. So rather than kind of go, hey everybody, you've got no PS4 keys. Sorry, they've gone out and done this, which is actually really really cool. Because another Kickstarter I backed, Agony, was just a fucking disaster.
was just agony.
It was. Well, I got, and there must be, and this is kind of interesting topic for another day, but there must be a different way that they go for review keys and backer keys. Maybe I don't know how it all works, because obviously we don't deal with that. But I got my Agony review key almost 3 weeks before I got my actual Kickstarter backer key. So the Kickstarter keys came in like 3 weeks after launch, basically, because they were having so much trouble getting them, and apparently it almost sounded like they didn't pay for them or something. I'm not quite too sure how it all panned out, but yeah, like, I had a review key weeks before I had my actual backer key, so it's good to have a Kickstarter experience like this. And the two guys, the reason why it's so just what Kieran was saying, why it's so, I guess, robust, is they didn't want to, and I think this should be all in the article, but they didn't want to release it, like sort of half-assed, and that's why it is so, it's optimized. There's no bugs, it's well done for two guys, but they wanted it to be that way. You know how a lot of devs will sort of, like Homefront's a good example, where they push something out even though they probably know that it's cooked, and then they patch it later, whereas this had all the content ready to go, and then they sort of shipped it out the door. I think they got funding as well, which helped them, and the Kickstarter funding helped them do that as well. It might have been a bit different if they didn't reach the Kickstarter goal. They might have had to have, punted it out the door without some modes first. I'm not really too sure, but yeah, it's a good little, it's a good read, and it's a pretty good game. And for $20, if you have some mates around and stuff, it's heaps of fun. And we have a comp going at the moment, which probably should be up still when this goes live. It's for an Xbox and Steam key, so check out the Facebook page or Twitter and have a go and have an enter.
One thing I'm confused about, though, tell me this: if it's just two guys working on the game, being that it's the game industry, do they take turns being like, one of them is the downtrodden one and the other person's like the overpowered CEO, and then they like swap on weekends or something? Like, does one person get to like rant on Twitter all day, but the other person works in a windowless room? Or
I think,
like, sorry, this is the game industry. That's how it works, surely.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. These Made in Australia segments have, I guess, given a pretty good insight into, I mean, not only for sort of indie devs, obviously, but how it all works. And when because a lot of the questions I ask are the same, and one of the questions generally is, what's the hardest thing you've discovered about being an indie dev, kind of thing. And a lot of them always say it's not actually making the game that's the difficult part. It's all the stuff.
It's
that
definitely
comes
taking turns ranting on Twitter.
Yeah, it's it's the marketing, it's the admin, it's the PR,
going to trade shows, and
it's going to trade shows.
Yeah, it's everything that isn't making the game.
Yeah, and the one we did recently for Dead Static Drive, like that one was, I think it's probably the best one. No offense, Brief Battles. But yeah, like his answers was super insightful, and he just, and even for a guy who posts
Mike Blackney.
Yeah, big old Mike Blackney from
Team Fan Club.
Team Fan Club, yeah, because his handle's Kurt Russell Fan Club, which I thought was actually, I actually asked him why was his developed name Kurt Russell Fan Club. Turns out it was just his online handle. But yeah, his answers were super interesting about how he basically has to shut off for a day or two at times and deal with admin and all that sort of stuff, and then the game basically doesn't move. And the reason why people always, or not the reason why, but people always ask what, when's the release date, when's it coming out, and he's just like, there are days when it basically, the progress, or weeks, where it just doesn't move, because he's he's a solo dev with contractors. I know he's brought on a couple now, but yeah, all that sort of stuff is interesting. And then you think about that in like a larger scope, and how many moving parts are in like a AAA or a AA sort of dev team. And yeah, it just makes you wonder how things get made at all sometimes, really.
It just goes to show that it's not just as simple as like sort of smash a game out and you're done.
Well, no, I mean, you can find plenty of those on Steam, those asset flip games that you can.
Oh yes, just ask our old mate.
Yeah, I think that's where our publishers like Devolver Digital come into play. Because for our listeners that don't know, Devolver Digital are basically a publisher that more or less publish indie games that would otherwise go unnoticed. And if you look at the E3 presentations, they basically just mock the whole industry. And they have this whole shtick where they don't care about what the industry does. They do what's best for the developers of their games. And it's this really cool attitude that they have that has really supported all these indie developers that have come to just rely on them to, promote and publish their games, because, as you know, we're talking about now, there are so many moving parts to a game that if you rely on such a small number of people, development just stops. And, it's hard to have that be a sustainable thing in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of all their games. There are a couple that I have enjoyed, and there's a couple that I like the look of. There's My Friend Pedro, I think
That
it's
game
called,
looks
which looks
so
pretty
sick.
cool.
That's a great game.
And then the one that got banned in Australia recently, which might have then got
Katana Zero?
Yeah, it might have got because I know they were
Wait.
resubmitting it. I'm not sure if
Katana Zero got banned in Australia?
Yeah, it got banned for like drug encouraging, rewards for drug use. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I know they
I
were.
guess he smokes an opium
they
pipe
said
or
they were
something.
going to resubmit it, so I'm not sure if it's been reclassified.
I think it's
or
still in
whatever.
limbo.
Yeah, yeah, that game looks pretty cool, and that game's been getting like really, really good reviews as too. But yeah, their E3 shows are always entertaining.
Yeah.
For sure.
Even if you have no interest in the games, just watch it for the funny.
We might sort of move on to some sort of general news kind of thing, and I guess one thing that's been it's blown up our Facebook feed and is the Sonic movie, which is
we're just talking about the Mortal Kombat film before, and we're gonna end on the Sonic film, which is just fantastic. I have one question for everybody.
Yeah.
Which was the worst though?
Sorry?
I was going to say, my one question that I've written for everybody is that regardless of how he looks, regardless of how he acts, can Jim Carrey carry this film?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he
that's
looks
the
a
way
bit shit though.
No, his Robotnik looks cool.
Yeah.
You reckon? I reckon it needs to be.
I like the transition from him with his
Weasley
regular kind of look going devolving into the Robotnik look that everyone knows.
It almost feels as
The
if
term devolving.
it almost
so
feels
good.
as if they're like, oh, we need to have someone good as Dr. Robotnik, and then whatever else will make the movie.
Yeah, whatever else happens.
The only
We'll put
question I
Sonic
sort of
in,
have for
maybe.
you, and this is a bit off topic, but is it going to be better or worse than that recent Sherlock Holmes film?
Oh, Holmes and Watson?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Well, that
Oh
film
my
would have been
lord.
10 times better if it had Monster Sonic in it. So, yes.
Is that the term we're using now? Monster Sonic?
Sure.
Giving kids nightmares? Yeah, sure.
I want a Robotnik standalone Origins film with Jim Carrey.
Actually, that'd be cool.
No Sonic in it whatsoever.
No.
How he became the Eggman.
Or just
But
call
yeah,
it the
I'd watch
Eggman. That sounds like. I love that.
I guess for
But
people that don't know, just so we can sort of clear up what we're talking
Who
about.
doesn't know?
Well, the Sonic movie, the trailer came out, and then everybody hated the design of Sonic himself, or herself, whatever Sonic is.
Itself.
It's an
Itself,
alien.
sorry.
Itself.
And yeah, I guess it was the director. Was it the director that came out and said that? they're
So
gonna change it?
basically, what happened is that obviously, for literally months, everyone knew that there was a Sonic movie coming, but nobody knew what he looked like. And there was a silhouette teaser release, and then there was a trailer with there was a poster with really muscular legs, and people got really all over that one as well. And so finally, the film trailer came out, and that was it. It was actually a trailer, and people obviously went back against it. Now, Jeff Fowler, who is the director of the film, has actually tweeted since the internet went completely bananas over how freakishly terrifying Sonic appeared. He has a mouthful of molars. That's it. They're all molars. But he came out and he said, "Thank you for the support, period, and the criticism, period. The message is loud and clear. You aren't happy with the design and you want changes. It's going to happen, period." It's the most comprehensive, okay, we get it. It's
He's
shit. We'll fix it.
Polar
Sorry.
opposite of Randy. If that was Randy, he would be like,
it's-
"Why are you doing me like this?" Internet?
It's the complete, evil twin Randy who'd just be like, "I can't believe you guys did me like that."
Well, this brings up a interesting question, which could turn into a huge chat in itself. What how do I phrase the question correctly? In regards to going back to sort of Sekiro and how they didn't have an easy mode, it's just brutally hard, and people were defending that because that's the creator's vision. How do you do you believe that the Sonic design itself should, or this, this trailer, this design should be respected for the creators division? Sorry,
I think
division.
the difference is like the creative vision for Sekiro was still something good.
And no, it's not even that, because even if you ask me,
I'm gonna quote that.
even if you ask me, I'm actually not against something like an assist mode for Sekiro, but when it comes to something like that, the whole reveal for Sonic, it's they're trying to interpret an artist's vision which has already been conceived. So it's not like their own idea for this thing, it's what they think this is supposed to look like, which isn't necessarily something that you should disrespect, but it's something that you should criticize if it's going in the wrong direction. Because it even happens a lot. It even happens a lot with games. Even if you look at a good example would be if you look at the difference between the art for the Halo games, you look at the Bungie art style and the 343 art style. They're two completely different things. Like the original Bungie art style is this very militaristic sci-fi kind of thing, whereas the 343 art style is it's just sci-fi. You've got the lens flares everywhere and everything is colored gray. It's just. And it's kind of like that, where it's just this interpretation of a preconceived art style, and I think what the job of a fan is to do is to not necessarily vilify or be vitriolic towards the people that interpret it incorrectly, but kind of steer them in the right direction.
Yep. I think the way that I look at it is obviously you take into account there's gamer entitlement, where you feel like you should get everything all the time, but then there's also gamer expectation. And the problem with Sonic is that he's, as a property, he's not really something that needs to be reimagined. Like, he sort of is what he is, and I think it was quoted up pretty well when a friend of mine just said simply, somebody at Paramount, when this film was being made, uttered the words, "Let's make the 4-foot-tall, neon blue, talking, running fast hedgehog more realistic." That's something that happened. And I mean, like, when it comes to things being reimagined, I am a Transformers fan, so I've had to live through the Michael Bay dynasty, and it's not fun. If they can get it, it doesn't even have to be 100%. It's explosive. It's entertaining. I'll never say it's not entertaining, but like, you don't have to get Sonic perfect, but just get him like 80% right. Like, just get him right enough that it doesn't give children nightmares, and you're off to a good start.
Is it the teeth? That's the main thing, or is it the legs?
I think it's just
the
mainly
proportions
the
of like an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, it's the problem that it does look like somebody in a suit.
Astro Boy with fur or something like that.
How do you accidentally CG something that looks like someone in a suit?
Yeah. It's like, was it literally like a motion capture was done by like an 8-year-old boy, and then they just changed the head into Sonic with his giant creepy teeth?
He kind of reminds me of the kid from Jumanji when he turns into like an ape or kind of something like that.
He reminds you and like 90% of the internet.
Oh, really?
It was like, look, he got more work.
Oh, nice. I actually haven't really read anything about it apart from people just complaining. I didn't even know. Nice.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that, like, the fact that they've reacted and said, look, hey, we are going to make changes. The interesting thing, though, is, like, is it going to be for the better? Like, obviously, that Sonic design went through, like, designers, it went through focus groups, it went through at least a couple of desks of people saying, is this okay? And the answer was yes. What if they make it worse?
Yeah, it's weird how these things get through.
Like...
Yeah. Anyway, we might
move
on.
Maybe the focus groups is just 40-year-old men.
A couple of bit more quicker news bits. I know you're all big sports fans here.
Huge, massive.
Mate, the whole site.
And that's been me. Good night, everyone.
The whole site.
People don't realise that the play in WellPlayed is actually referring to sports.
That's the joke I was going to make, but you got to it a bit quicker than I did.
Yeah, I did.
But yeah, the AFL game, which was announced, I think, late last year, was due out early this year, has been delayed. Surprise, surprise there, because the first one was pretty terrible. But one of the interesting things is the Facebook post that they announced this delay is that it's going to be using Unreal. But it doesn't specify which version of Unreal. It just says it's going to be using Unreal. So...
When you put it like that, it sounds almost sinister.
Look,
are they using 3 or are they using 4?
Look,
either way,
it's-
I hope it's going to
We
be.
found an Unreal
It's
Engine.
very
We're
hard
gonna use
to figure out what they're gonna say because all they said is you'll experience, you'll have vastly improved gaming
Yeah.
experience, including enhanced graphics. That doesn't tell me much. Physics, which my only experience with physics in Unreal was with Borderlands 2, which was Unreal 3, and Warframe, which was Unreal 3. So that's giving me the idea that it might be Unreal 3 and multiplayer modes, which makes no sense. You know that's
then
not
just
something
says
that comes
et
with
cetera.
yeah.
It's
And then
Right.
then the next paragraph starts off with all great stuff. So
it's like a Trump campaign.
Okay, but what I
speech.
really want to hammer home is so they've mentioned physics. Now, have the developers ever really been really focused on PC as a platform?
it was on PC. It's done by Wicked Witch, who don't remember what they did. So probably nothing good.
Because physics is a hot topic for debate because the way physics works is it's a proprietary physics and GPU particle calculation method that is proprietary to NVIDIA, which is the biggest GPU manufacturer out there. But a lot of the caveats is if you don't have an NVIDIA GPU, it does all that calculation off of the CPU, which tanks performance super hard.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you talk to anyone that's played Borderlands 2 with physics on, that runs an AMD card, they will tell you that they go from like going at like 150 frames per second looking at the ground to looking at one speck of dust and going down to 20. Like it's an absurdly massive amount of just a performance penalty. So I'm really curious as to why they would have done that. I have a feeling it might be because using Havoc costs money, whereas physics is free. So
Valid point.
I'm really interested to see what they did because Warframe used to do it, and then they changed to in-house GPU particles, which look much better and they run much better.
So maybe if you're using AMD hardware, they just turn the ball off.
Yeah, I don't know, but I hope it's better than the first one. But just to give a quick sort of recap, a couple months ago or weeks ago, they uploaded a new Facebook image on the new profile picture, and it was not HD. It was like pixelated. And it was
Really?
yeah, man.
Hey,
and the
hey.
comment,
That might
it
be
was
the
so
Switch
good.
version.
No, it's because it's running on Unreal 1.
yeah. So
Yeah, they
all
never
the-
said which Unreal Engine.
all the comments are just absolutely gold. And then they uploaded one like I don't know, like a day later or something like that. But yeah, the damage was already done. So I think after that sort of debacle, I'm not expecting great things. The next sort of quick news thing we'll touch on before we finish off, because we've gone on a little bit longer than what I thought we would. But it's been good. It's been a good chat. The State of Play 2. Oh, not State of Play 2, but the next State of Play.
Oh, the PlayStation State of Decay.
Medieval.
The showcase is on Friday at 8 a.m. I believe for Australian Eastern Standard Time. And as Jordan said, they're going to be showing off Medieval. I think we're all big
Oh my
fans
god,
here.
I forgot that was a thing.
I know
I
that
forgot that they said they were doing
I am
that.
so keen
Jordan's
for
a
that.
fan.
I am so keen.
I know.
I'm so excited now.
Did you guys all play it?
The-
Yeah.
Well, the original, absolutely.
Hell yeah! I still play it with a PS1.
You would. But no, I'm hoping. I reckon. I thought maybe one of Last of Us or Ghost might be the next game to come out, possibly at the end of the year. But I reckon this could be the one that comes out at the end of the year for Sony. I think the other two are probably going to be next year sometime.
They said they got something new to announce as well, yeah?
Yeah, there was a new. Well, did it actually say new game or news footage or something?
No,
I think
they said a new
yeah.
title.
Oh hell yeah!
okay,
Can it
cool.
please be a new Wipeout?
That could be anything though. No, it's going to be a pause challenge.
Hell yeah!
But what else are there anything? Sorry, is there anything that you sort of want to see or talked about?
Oh, that's a good question actually.
Just very, very quickly. You said new Wipeout, so there's your turn done.
Yeah, see, I'm good.
No, anything else?
I mean,
I mean, what, for just Sony in general?
Well, yeah. So they're obviously going to be showing off whatever was it 25 minutes or whatever
I would
it goes for.
I would love to see more of Ghost of Tsushima because that game looked very interesting and it's very much in a setting that I love. It's part of why I love Sekiro so much is that whole feudal Japan is just it's my jam. And so I would love to see more about that, especially because we pretty much haven't heard anything since E3.
Yes, I'd be keen to see something like that.
I want to see more Ratchet and Clank because Insomniac have been talking about it again recently, like just in like semantics, but you know, like they're done with Spider-Man and the remake they did a couple years ago was amazing, so it's time.
Is Ratchet a new game or a remake or something?
To reimagine
The most recent
Ratchet
one,
and Clank game.
It was
Or
like
the new one. Sorry, like
yeah,
coming.
is it? Well, the one that they released a couple years ago, they haven't got anything coming up.
Oh,
The one that
I
released a
want them
couple
to
of years ago
announce
was
one.
basically a retelling of the first game.
Sorry,
yeah.
okay, sorry. I thought there was
Yeah,
one that
yeah.
they'd already.
No, I want that to be like the new surprise, but it probably won't be, but it'd be dope. But yeah, like the last one was like a reimagining of the first game.
I would also
What are the odds
from Insomniac. I'd also love Sunset Overdrive for PS4.
Yeah, that game is awesome.
That's so good.
That is a game that really,
That
the
will
best
never
game
happen,
nobody's played.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything apart from maybe I don't know something about The Last of Us though. I'm not too phased.
AFL Evolution 3.
Oh yeah, yes. You know what? They're just going to cancel 2 and just make 3.
Yeah, because somebody told
on
them there
Unreal
was a
3.
newer Unreal Engine. They're like, oh shit, I'm gonna start again.
Do you reckon they got to use an Unreal Engine for the number of the games? So AFL Evolution 2 is Unreal Engine 2, and then Evo 3 will be Unreal 3, and Evo 4 will Unreal 4.
I hope so.
They'll get up to 4, then they'll reboot it, and they're like, oh shit, we've got to use the first one again.
One of the rumors that of why it's delayed is apart from the engine is the AFL don't want it to be shit again, like
Again.
which I think is a very tough ask.
When you look at the people that run the AFL as well, like their opinion on a game doesn't hold much water. So if they think it's shit, well,
I think because they're giving a bit of money towards it, obviously, but it's just
not enough, clearly.
No, I think, and I think I wrote this in the other review. I was very generous with like the other game because I think when you get a sports game, a lot of people expect like a FIFA or like an EA Sports kind of game or a 2K, and Wicked Witch aren't going to have the sort of
no handball 16
resources. Yeah, I think I was reading that the FIFA menus cost more money to make or whatever to produce than the whole AFL game in itself.
Well, that's because it's the Frostbite engine, so they need to spend like 2 months with the tech team making it work.
And I also believe that the AFL, the sport, is not a good video game sport in the modern context. Like the older games that were sort of a bit more, not 2D, but kind of not as modern, were okay. But I think now that it's sort of more modern, it's just there's too many variables of the ball and all the different actual mechanics of the sport itself. I don't think it translates into a good game. Unless you got EA willing to put 100 million in, I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, it would be a hard experience to get right because, especially at some points of looking at AFL, it can be a very messy game to watch. So imagine how it plays. It'd be a very messy game to play at some points, especially when everyone's trying to juggle the ball, but they're just touching each other's butts or whatever.
Ooh, I'd play that. The other bit of news that Jordan's written down here is the AMD Navi.
So,
Navi?
If you played Zelda, you would know. But so basically, the whole rumor, all these rumors are based around AMD's next GPU architecture, which for people that aren't aware, what a GPU architecture is basically the way that graphics processor is built. CPUs are the same, and it's more or less entails the efficiency and the strengths of a GPU. So earlier, a few weeks ago, when some of the PS5 details got released, it was announced that the PS5 would use a Navi GPU, which is a revelation because the consoles aren't very good at keeping up to date with technology. And so a news article has just come out today via guru3d.com, and it's purely speculation, so take it with a grain of salt, but they're talking about the whole line of Navi GPUs going from an RX 3060 all the way to an RX 3090 XT. and the XT models would be kind of like the TI models for Nvidia's line, except for AMD. And so it talks about how you have your different levels of compute units going from the lowest end having 32 to the highest end having 64. It goes through the TDP, which is the thermal, it's basically how much power it uses. And it also gives you an idea of what the performance should be expected around. So looking at this spec sheet that I have here from this article, it's saying that the top end RX 3090 XT will have similar levels, if not the same level of performance as the Radeon 7, which was that came out in February, plus about 10%, which is kind of about what you expect from a generational leap. You don't expect huge amounts of performance gains. It's kind of like this incremental thing, especially with AMD's GCN architectures. So the it'll be interesting to see which GPU in this Sony is kind of with in this product stack for their PS5, because even at their bottom end for the RX 360 is the RX 580, which was for a while it was AMD's top end card. So even then, that's still pretty good. So it'd be interesting to see what they do. And the Navi architecture isn't expected to release until pretty much next year. And it wouldn't surprise me if it released alongside a PS5 launch.
Yeah, be the flagship GPU for it.
So what does it mean? Like, so give me examples of what it does. So is it better visuals? Is it
okay? So it's
whatever?
Not necessarily better visuals. It's better processing. So most of the things that a lot of
but what does that mean though? Like what am I going to be seeing?
So you might see better visuals if the developer opts to go for better visuals, especially for the consoles. But what most of these architectural improvements mean is that these components become more efficient, so they can do the same thing for less power, or they can do more for the same amount of power currently being used. And
so that means they can sort of allocate more power to other things. So we might see things like frame rate increases.
You probably will see things like frame rate increases, especially it's been a bit of a push, especially with the Xbox One X and Xbox in general supporting FreeSync, which is an adaptive vertical synchronization technology, which basically stops getting screen tearing in a game unless it's something like there was a game that was getting screen tearing on the PS4. I forgot what it was.
What, recently?
Yeah,
AFL Evolution.
No, not with Unreal Engine. But so with things like that, and it kind of reinforces this idea that higher frame rates equal clearer experience. It's part of the reason why I prefer PC games, not because I care about the graphics so much more. Couldn't give a shit about the graphics.
No, the graphics.
I'm more about the frame rate. So it means a multitude of things. So the PS5 could be quieter because it's using less power. It could also be quieter because less power is going through it. It could also mean that the failure rate could be lower because you're stressing the components a lot less. So you don't get a repeat of the Xbox 360, which had a failure rate of like 50%.
So basically, day one buy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
How much, what sort of, if you were putting one of these GPUs into your rig, how much are we looking at?
So with the Navi GPUs, it's going from around 140 US to 500 US, which is
That's a bit cheap.
So it all depends on what you go. The low end, which is still looking pretty good, is still fairly affordable, but it kind of remains to be seen. There was talk about the Radeon 7, which just came out, which was going to be like $200 or $300 cheaper than the RTX 2080, but it ended up mirroring that price point purely because of the VRAM that it used was just so expensive, and they had so much of it that it kind of made up that price gap and they got identical. But this is using a much cheaper form of VRAM by the looks of it, so you'll generally see it be maybe 20 to 30% cheaper than Nvidia's offerings for more or less the same thing.
What if? What's the price if crypto takes off again?
Oh, well, that I can't tell you because
if Bitcoin comes
the
back,
weird thing about crypto was when crypto
was
was massive. The GPU market in Australia for Nvidia wasn't that bad. Like, A 1080 Ti costs like 1,500 American in the US, but it still costs the the RRP of 1,200 in Australia. So what a lot of Australians were doing was they were buying these up and then selling them for the American price and just pocketing from the currency exchange.
It was madness. That's what it was. Anyway, let's wrap it up there, kind of. The rest of the week, what do we? Because it is Tuesday while we record this. What's the plans for the rest of the week? Is there anything you're going to be playing, reviewing, writing?
I mean, I'll probably just go back to playing Breath of the Wild. I've been trying to find various games to do deep dives on, and I found a lot of the Zelda games are fun to do deep dives on. So, expect some articles like that in the near future. And I might do some other games like God of War to get started on all that as well.
Hadn't you played God of War?
With
deep dive. Sorry.
How do I do a deep dive?
No. Sorry. I thought you meant that you haven't played God of War, and then I realized you were talking. Yeah, sorry. Then I realized you were talking about the deep dive.
Man, I bought the console for it. How could I have not played it?
Can you erase that out?
$20.
Impose, please remove that.
Kieran, are you playing anything?
I don't know. I might
you got Life is Strange. Is that out?
Oh, that's out on the 9th in a couple of days. I'm pretty sure.
Do you have
I'll
access
definitely
now?
be playing that. No.
Bummer.
Anyone getting Rage 2?
I will definitely be playing. That's next week. I will definitely be playing Rage 2. Looks dope. I played a little bit in the past. It was awesome.
Ash, my boy.
Me? Well, generally I went through a scramble and found a whole bunch of games that I forgot that I even bought. So apparently I'm going to be playing Metal Gear Rising Revengeance sometime this
that's
week.
a great
because
game.
I bought it on Xbox 360 and never played it. That's just how I roll, baby.
I think I got it when it was free on PS Plus, back on the PS3.
Yeah, I realise that most of these games that I own, I probably have them free on some subscription service somewhere. But yeah, no, I definitely own it, and I definitely have not
So I
played
think the question for you, Zach, is how many games in your backlog are you going to ignore this week?
All of them.
to
Because
replay.
I'll be continuing to play Days Gone, slogging through that. But I'm also reviewing A Plague Tale: Innocence at the moment, which comes out on Tuesday, same day as Rage 2. And if you have an option to buy one or the other, I would say Redacted.
I would definitely say pick up another copy of Troll and I for Nintendo Switch.
Do that.
That game goes on
but yeah,
sale
so,
all the time, so it's always worth it.
I'll be playing that. Apart from that, I do want to try and finish Dishonored 2 at some point before the end
still
of
haven't finished it?
June.
Why don't you finish Sekiro?
Who did you play through as?
Sorry? I played through as Corvo. I couldn't... So, the initial time I booted it up, you do the first bit, and then it asks you, who do you want to play as? And I couldn't choose, so I turned it off.
You can't make me choose!
Yeah, I was like, do I want... So I actually did like a bit of research on what powers who has, and I was just like, nah, I think I like Corvo's moveset a bit better, and I played Corvo in the first one, so I sort of have a bit of,
Man crush.
a bit of love for Corvo.
Just call it what it is. Man crush.
So when are you going to finish Sekiro?
Well, I think you've locked me out of your account again.
Have I?
Which is fair enough. Well, yeah.
Oh, we can fix
There's
that.
a lock on the icon of it. So,
Oh.
but that's fine. I mean, I've no idea. I don't think I even got up to the first boss. Not because I died, but because I just didn't play like that much. I got up to the part where you meet the guy.
Oh yeah,
and
that
he's
part.
like, how?
Yeah, I know exactly
Let
what
him
he's talking
talk.
about.
The
And
guy
he tries to kill you, right?
who's like the merchant, and you got to buy information from him, and you're not sure if he's.
Ah,
bullshit or
you're
something.
there. Okay, yeah, that's very early on.
Yeah. So that's where I sort of.
Yes,
And then
that's
I
10 minutes into the game.
I think
Practically.
I saved after that, and then I never got a chance to go back to it.
Zach's up to that guy. He's like, he asks you like, do you want to start a new game or do you want options?
Yeah,
or...
I'm up to that guy that says, like, please enter your name. It says, are you a girl or a boy?
No. Are you a grill?
Yeah.
Professor Oaks and Sekiro, obviously.
If you could play as Corvo in Sekiro,
You'd be all
Look,
over.
that
I'd be all
just
over
tells
it.
me you want the
be
PC
done by
version
it.
so you can mod that in.
oh damn
with
it!
Thomas the Tank Engine.
Can I
Thomas
play
the
as
Tank Engine.
Leon?
Yeah.
Probably.
Shirtless Leon?
Probably.
Nice.
Look, if you ask for it, a model will make it.
Yep. Ask for it nicely and it'll happen. All right.
Cool. Oh, we had a very good chat on our first ep. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode.